With good Tuesday morning and the weather, of course, now that we're out of a longer holiday weekend from Memorial Day to remember those who gave all in military service. I hope many of people remembered that yesterday. We come out of that longer weekend, J Dog. Now we have the sunshine. Now we have the warmer stuff for the next day or two. I guess we'll take it. But other than that, we have plenty going on this morning. And we'll our poll question up on X at the pulse of an H is: do you think the U.S. should levy new sanctions on Russia after Vladimir Putin, according to President Trump, gone crazy? Big surprise. Putin being Putin. We'll come back to that. Actually, I have some serious concerns about this, but we'll come back to that. Also, the so called big, beautiful budget bill, tax cut spending bill that President Trump wants passed. What's going to happen in the Senate? We're going to have some thoughts. And if that gets derailed, that could be interesting in terms of uncertainty on the markets. But other than that, we'll stay optimistic. Brad Card will be checking with that update from Capitol Hill. Before we get going, though, our poll question up on X is: do you think the U.S. should levy sanctions on Russia now that Russia's basically turning up the heat and doing just the exact opposite that we and many people want, including Ukraine, in terms of peace? Russia's escalating military, 900 drones shot into Ukraine, the border villages. Putin is acting quite aggressive. Well, should we levy sanctions, yes or no? I say yes. My only worry is I don't think they'll have much impact, but what do you think? J-Dog, before I get going into the heavy-duty stuff, good morning to you. I know you worked most of the weekend. How you doing? Oh, come on. It's good for you. After the last 4 or 5 days or before this weekend, you can't be out there too much, right, J-Dog? You gotta soak it in. All right. You were busy all weekend though, right? Yeah. All right. Well, let's get you caught up on what's going on. We are separately going to have some updates. Anna Brown Citizens Count. While there are mostly sort of meeting stuff happening this week in the state house, you get the state budget process continuing. We had some of the leaders last week on the show, Governor Kelly Ayotte, Senator Birdsell, but it's really in the state Senate, and we'll get an update on that. We'll also get an update on some of the Memorial Day stuff in terms of tourism. Lakes region was busy despite the weather going into the first part of the extended weekend. We'll get an update from the Seacoast, Alicia Preston Xanthopoulos, Seacoast Online. And we'll also have some good news as we end the show today. But let me give you a couple things that are catching my eye out of the gate. And I really am having some concerns here because I'm looking at the situation in Ukraine. And if you remember, if you're a regular listener to the show, and we appreciate that. And by the way, good morning across our network of AM and FM stations right up into Maine. In addition to WTSN, AM, and FM, we have a new FM signal for you up there, 98.7 HD2. Lakes region, we have you covered, where they were busy this weekend despite some colder, wet weather to start the weekend, but it ended pretty nice. They had good tourism numbers in the Lakes region. We also have 98.3 for you in the Lakes region, in addition to AM, FM, WEMJ 98.3 FM HD2, and of course 107.7. Hey, New England. Hey, worldwide. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Play the pulse of an H. Okay, so this is my concern, and to give you some commentary, and I don't mean to get you going, but I've always been more fascinated by foreign policy, or pretty much looking at the world, because history, you can look at history to learn some things of where we're at, where we're going. I have said all along that the war in Ukraine will end when Vladimir Putin wants it to end. Now, you may not like hearing that, but that's a reality. He's the aggressor. He's the attacker. He's the bigger player. And that's the way it goes. And what I worry, and I mean this sincerely, what I worry is if Putin is a lot more unpredictable, which is his background, in terms of his not being able to be trusted. And President Trump and Putin just recently had more than a 2-hour phone call where the president came out and said, Vladimir Putin's getting tired of war. He wants it to end. And it looked like things were going that way. And then all of a sudden, Putin ratchets it up and escalates and did the exact opposite. Now, that could be Putin's style, very unpredictable. My concern is if President Trump doesn't have the relationship he thought with him and Putin is more rogue, well, I don't know what's going to stop him. And I mean that sincerely. We all should be concerned. People don't realize this, but Putin in his own mind may be thinking he's rebuilding Mother Russia by going and taking Ukraine, and he may not stop till he gets it. And then the question is, well, does he stop there? And Putin is rather unpredictable. Russia also has the number one, I don't mean to get you worked up on a Tuesday, number one nuclear arsenal in the world ahead of the United States. I'm not sure you knew that. I also worry about China and the challenge of tariffs on Russia is Putin can get anything he wants from China, so he doesn't really care about domestic, tariffs are going to affect the domestic economy. And Europe is still buying. I mean, Russia's the gas station of Europe. They're still buying all their natural gas despite the war in Ukraine. So all those European Union nations are buying. They're enriching Putin, buying energy, and he's been able to raise the prices. So I don't know what sanctions will do. And then no one wants a bigger war, but how do you stop Putin? And then I worry about China. If China is going to be quiet or reticent while Putin pushes in Ukraine, and China's always been eyeing Taiwan. You look at a worst case scenario where they both could push at the same time, and then what do we do? I'm not saying it goes there, and I hopefully things simmer down, but I'm paying attention to what's happening between particularly the United States and Russia in terms of trying to get Putin to stop. And I don't know what he wants other than probably all the Ukraine, and that's going to be an unacceptable price. So we'll see where it goes, but keep an eye on China as well. And I'm not going to go on any more bummer scenarios, but that's a concern. Meanwhile, the so-called big beautiful bill, which is a big tax cut, it is also a spending bill. It could hit more snags in the Senate. It could hit more snags in the Senate. We're going to get a live report in just a moment. Brad Card will be joining that and see what happened. The new Biden book that was out and all the talk about Joe Biden last week. And again, I don't, this is a little bit of a mystery for me. All of a sudden, and Jake Tapper, like the biggest, the biggest sort of CNN lightning rod for pro Democrat reporting versus journalism, and all the stuff, when he was when CNN, and then he writes a book about Biden's decline. And Tapper was the one who was probably perpetuating or believing the BS that Biden was not failing cognitively or physically. So all the stuff about Biden, Joe Biden, to talk about, at this point, who cares? It's pathetic. It is rather pathetic. It's concerning. I have not seen so much hypocrisy into one batch of soup in a long time. All these Democrats who propped him up and said he was fine. And then we found out in Jake Tapper's book that three key civilians sort of hijacked the Biden presidency and the reelection, weren't letting cabinet members even speak with the president directly so they would not notice or be concerned about his cognitive decline. It's an unbelievable um, reality cover up, if you will. But why are we surprised? Why all of a sudden there's so many people speaking up about Joe Biden's decline when we all knew it? You, me, the person next to you, we saw what we saw. We were told we weren't seeing it. We saw what happened in Atlanta that Joe Biden at that debate in Atlanta. That was Joe Biden, and it was getting worse. And then his whole cancer treatment, oncologists are saying he's probably had since he was vice president. So all these things where we basically, were lied to. Big surprise. Not the first time, right? Not the first time. So all these people who basically said Joe Biden was great. If you question his cognitive decline, you're the problem, not him. He's doing awesome. He's the most experienced, wonderful leader, best president we've ever had. And now everyone is just, they're mutiny on the Biden bounty. They're all jumping the ship. They're all saying this stuff, and kind of rewriting history that I didn't say anything because, and we didn't say anything because, and oh my goodness, it's like nauseating. But why all of a sudden? I don't know. Maybe we'll check in with Michael Graham. He's got a story on that, on the local implications of the Joe Biden, I guess, decline that was covered up by his own team. Rather remarkable. All right. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google, play the Pulse of an H. We are looking at a nice looking Tuesday, some sunshine out there, warmer temperatures. You can finally take off the sweatshirts and the sweaters. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google, play the Pulse of an H. Jack Heath, J Doc on the boards. Back in a few. All right, we are back. We'll dub it up for a minute. Brad Card, one of our political analysts and all-stars, co-host of Contact Politics on, going to be talking a little bit about the process now for the big bill, if you will, tax spending bill, big, beautiful bill in the Senate. But first, we'll talk a little bit about this Joe Biden, the book by Tapper and others. Good or bad news for New Hampshire Democrats, the big cover-up on his cognitive decline. Michael Graham, New Hampshire Journal. I'll let you take a minute or two and let Brad react. But, Michael, I'm going to get you wound up. And on a Tuesday, I don't think anyone cares. I think most people have concluded they knew the cognitive decline to Joe Biden. We all saw it. We know people were behind it, whether it's Jill Biden, the first lady, and the staffers covering it up. And I think in a few months, I don't think anyone really cares. They know that they hit it. They tried to disguise it from the American public. I think it was a rather rude crowd. What do you call it? Power grab? Pretty disgusting what people do for power. Pretty pathetic that the Joe Biden was, in my opinion, exploited. Talk about elder abuse. But beyond that, you think it matters for some Democrats here. Brad Card, your reaction. I just think that Michael, I don't think if Maggie Goodlander's asked a question, I don't think it's going to be a reason she doesn't get reelected. Personally, there may be other reasons, but I think by then, I think people are going to say, "Hey, we knew it. They covered it up. Big deal. We get lied to all the time. We get lied to all the time by Washington." But but you know what? Yeah, but you know what, Michael? There was enough doubt even if you were 90% sure he was out of it, there was enough doubt, to Brad's point. There was just enough doubt for it to kinda last to the point of reelection. It was just enough doubt. No, I was the one saying he's too old, too confused, young. Though they also said it was true of Nancy Reagan and Ronald Reagan at the end, right? Yep. Oh, I know. Look at well, look it. You couldn't be Jake Sullivan or any of the people around Biden, and, Jake Tapper says in his book, they weren't even those 3, civilian aides weren't even let cabinet members talk to him directly because he was so out of it. Yeah, that's a and, yeah, right. And you know what? And the focus group would like that. But, I personally believe that the big coup, and I used to tangle with Brad on this because he didn't, he said, Jack, it doesn't matter. He's forced out because of fundraising. Pelosi and Schumer told him, we're going to lose Congress. You can't run. You got to drop out. I think someone, those three or four, went to him and said, look, here's the deal. You're out this weekend. We're going to invoke the 25th. We're going to take away your presidency because you don't even know who you are anymore. You probably told Jill Biden this. You were either out this weekend and we'll let you finish your presidency in dignity, or you stay in there and say, no, we take it away from you, but we're putting in Harris. You're out. I think they threatened him with that. Well, they'll love you. Yeah. Yep. 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 All right. Appreciate it, Michael. Thank you, Brad Card. Stay on. Thank you, Michael. Michael Graham, New Hampshire Journal. Brad Card, let's talk about the big, beautiful bill and the establishment, the so called Trump establishment in the Senate. President Trump and his team, they need those senators to pass this bill. If this gets derailed, Brad, who knows what the House will pass? We could have, and you've been saying this is not a slam dunk. This could be a budget mess here. Take it away. Well, well, Brad, you know what I worry about? Of course, I don't want to be a worrier on a Tuesday coming out of Memorial Day weekend, but I'm going to say it. We haven't talked about it. We can take a quick break, come back, but I'm a little worried. Actually, I'm a little worried because I'm a foreign policy fan or of history. I'm a little worried that Putin's not responding to Trump's pressures as much as I thought he would want to find a way out of this war, like take part of the Ukraine, the seacoast side, put something to walk away from. And I'm a little concerned because if things ratchet up, and you know what's happening, if things get more tense in Ukraine, and Putin feels, hey, I got China, I don't care about sanctions. What are they going to do? What are they going to do to stop me? Well, what I'm saying is, if we turn up the heat and it has no impact on him, Putin, and things get more tense there, I'm worried about China. And then if this Senate bill gets caught up, the budget bill, now all of a sudden you talk about uncertainty, and you still have some pending tariff uncertainty out there. That that's what I hope things stabilize. Yeah, it could, and we'll see. Well, as I said, I think there's a period between now. Oh, I know. His background is deception. He's, there's KGB, and then he takes over his own country as the presidency and the oil, the industry. He's a multi-billionaire KGB. That's what he is. Pretty scary. All right, Brad. Listen, we got to run. Thank you, Brad Card, live in Washington. Thanks, Brad. We'll take a quick break. We'll tell you about some of the local stuff. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Play the Pulse of an H. Then Doug Tangden on the economic side. Our local economy, what's happening? I guess it was a busy tourism weekend, despite sort of half weather being cool and wet, and maybe the back half being a little better. But Lakes region busy. What about real estate and a whole lot more? Back in a moment. Again, I don't mean to harp on foreign policy on a Tuesday coming out of Memorial Day, but I do for a moment because maybe it's just the college days, the civilian time at the U.S. Army War College National Security Seminar. I just worry. This is breaking as we speak, so this is kind of interesting. Good morning, welcome back. And weather's looking nice. Of course, it's Tuesday. Why not be sunny and warmer, right? Wednesday even nicer. So, hey Alexa, hey Google, play the Pulse of an H. Jack Heath. Um, I was a little. By the way, I'm going to come back to this news that's breaking between Russia and the United States in a moment, real quickly. And I won't. I didn't want to forget the um, the French president getting the whack in the face by the first lady of France getting off the airplane. That plane went. That picture went viral. A little spat at the top of the stairways as the stairway as the French president was getting off his plane to go visit Vietnam. A little whack across the face from the first lady of France. Tough for the secret or the security around the French president. How you handle that one? But anyway, we won't. I don't know what you know. It's French. They're French. What am I supposed to say? I don't know. I can't understand. But I mean, hey, it is what it is. But those things happen. I guess it's just too bad when it's on all the cameras and the pictures and you're a president or a leader of a country. Um, but I will say I was a tad grateful because people on Memorial Day weekend, they're not. If you don't really. And Friday we had just Thursday and Friday we tried. I thought we had some wonderful segments, including that class, by the way, as I think this morning, right about as we speak, is having a coffee with veterans. A Trinity Christian School, is that at J-Dog in Concord on Clinton Street? We had the sixth grade teacher call in and Alex and her class. They host this veterans coffee this morning to honor, and they're honoring a couple Gold Star families, and I thought that was wonderful. So a lot of people, they look at, let's just face it, less than 1% serve 340 million Americans. You know, the reality is 90% of the people out there, you would think, look at Memorial Day as the kickoff of summer, even though the weather wasn't perfect or idyllic for that. Not so much remembering those in the military who gave their lives for our freedom and our country. Memorial Day, whereas Veterans Day honors all people who wore the uniform. Memorial Day is special or significant for that. And a lot of people you'll catch say, "Oh, have a good Memorial Day weekend barbecue or cookout, have a nice." And it's tough. And I come from the school losing my dad at a very young age as a Marine. Um, I understand and I think try to advocate for veterans consistently on this program and my sort of my mission or purpose as I get older. But I don't fault people who don't understand and have a greater appreciation or respect. I think the biggest I see mistakes all the time, and a lot of people who will remember Memorial Day for the real significance of it. And I saw a fair amount of it, and I was encouraged over the weekend. I really was more than I thought I would be. I don't fault a lot of people in the civilian world for sort of focusing more on the kickoff of summer and a long weekend. Hey, we get an extra day off. We got a 3-day weekend. Whoo, Memorial Day. It's going to be summer soon and sunny and hot and, head to the beach and the lake and cookouts. I don't fault people for that. I really don't. I know some people do on the purist side, but I think you have to understand the reality. But what I think sometimes people need to remember, and I'll just say this quickly, is we should remember all the time the people around the veteran, the families, the spouse, especially those who lost a loved one in military service or training. And too often we gloss over the spouse or the family and the kids. And I think that, but I was encouraged overall that there was a lot of remembrance or honor. Let me switch gears. There's been some news breaking, which I think is encouraging. I was talking earlier about my proclivity or tendency to focus on foreign policy and history, something I don't think enough people do, and hopefully more Ivy League political science and history professors can get off the political crap and get back to teaching and look at history. But we just heard news that Russia is showing signs of now wanting, after toughening up after the call with President the phone call between Trump and Putin, which was like reports have it well over 2 hours, where President Trump came out going into the Memorial Day period saying it looks like Putin wants a deal. He's tired of war. And then over the weekend, we see the exact opposite: bombing 900 drones by Russia into Ukraine, more military moving to the border towns. Putin was doing the exact opposite, which is sort of his nature. It's tough to know if you can trust him at all. But now Russia's showing signs of wanting to cool things off. And it looks like, we'll tell you this right now, Russia's agreeing to a prisoner swap between President Trump and the United States. Vladimir Putin and President Trump have agreed to a prisoner swap just a few days after President Trump branded Vladimir Putin, saying he's gone crazy. He's gone crazy. The prisoner swap was revealed today by Russia's foreign minister, who praised Trump as a man who wants results as he spoke to an event in Turkey. The prisoner swap was agreed to amid negotiations to end the war in Ukraine, which has sensationally, basically, turned up. The heat is turned up in this process, and it was looking rather more pessimistic. The U.S. State Department did not immediately respond, but apparently the prisoner swap deal is in the works between the U.S. and Russia. And if it does happen, and I guess who could be swapped is an American teacher who was returned. Oh no, that was back in the U.S. in February. But the breakthrough in Turkey, we'll see who the major prisoner swap. But apparently, it's going to take place, and we're trying to see if trying to verify all this as we speak. But it could be somewhat of a positive sign. The question is, can the negotiations, whether they're in Turkey or between Putin and Trump, can they actually progress with any degree of certainty? A number of Americans remain, believe it or not, in Russia prisons that could be part of the deal, including a 72-year-old Stephen Hubbard, who was sentenced to almost 7 years for fighting for Ukraine, if you remember that one. Another one, American soldier Gordon Black, 35, a U.S. staff sergeant. He's in a Russian jail. He was arrested in May 2024 on quote unquote dubious theft charges. So we'll see if that happens, but that's breaking as we speak. It's funny, it's breaking not on the major networks, it's breaking on Daily Mail. The first ones that had the President Macron being slapped or pushed in the face by his wife on the top of the airplane stairs getting off in Vietnam, and then everyone else 2 days later picked it up. So maybe this one's real. All right. Hey, Alexa, Google, play the pulse of the Mage. We'll come back with Doug Tengden, global market update on the economy. The economy and the economy. It still may be the number one issue. The local economy. Are people better off? Are they feeling better off about their budgets, grocery bills? What about the utility bills? I talked at the end of the week. Eversource is asking the Public Utilities Commission of New Hampshire, you ready for this? For a 17% rate hike on their customers. 17% rate hike on their customers. Largest utility in New England and New Hampshire. 17%. And you're already paying through the nose for your electricity and utility bills here in New Hampshire. 17%. Now, you heard me say towards the end of the week, before Memorial Day weekend, I think the PUC should flatly say, nope, we reviewed it. We've heard your request. Denied. People don't have the money in their budgets. Groceries are expensive. Healthcare, affordable housing crisis, inflation. You're not getting a 17% increase. Sorry, Eversource, not happening. But I'm not on the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission. They have to come in and request. Now, it might be a negotiating tactic. Everyone blames Donald Trump for a deal maker. Eversource may be going as high as they can, asking for the farm and being happy if they get a goat pen. So they might get 5%. I think they just say, you know what, not a good time to raise 17% on distribution and supply of electricity. Sorry, not a good time. None of your ratepayers got a 17% in their income. Trust me. Hey, illegal. Hey, Google, not illegal. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Back with Doug Tengden talking a little bit on the economy next. Hopefully, we get a bite. Thank you, Jack. All right, we are back on this nice looking Tuesday, and Doug Tengden, uh, a day late, but not a dollar short because we're into Tuesday with Memorial Day yesterday. Globalmarketadvisors.com. Good morning, Doug. Yeah, as good as can be. Yeah, it was okay. I hope you had some time with the family and friends. Do you like my as an economist? Do you like my a day late but never a dollar short? Never a dollar short. Doug, I'm a little encouraged. I just saw a little break in the action between Russia, Putin, and the U.S. on this prisoner swap. Because as long as that door is open, it's better than it's closing. Because I worry about what would happen if that happens. My question, though, is the economy. I still think it all comes down to the economy. I worry, if that's the budget bill gets caught up in the Senate, we have doubt and uncertainty. We still have tariff situation. I still look at the economy. I guess things were busy over the weekend, but I still think on people's minds is the party getting over? Is it over, or is the party still going on consumer resiliency? And what would happen if they do what's predictable, behind and too late? What are you concerned about? That they don't lower the rates in time? Right. So let me ask you let me ask you a question because we have time. I understand there's sort of a inverse rationale to the Fed, meaning there isn't one. And for many years with Janet Yellen and the Fed, I could see them suppressing rates. Rates were too low and they were kept low too long. We could have avoided a lot of things like inflation if they maybe had moved a little bit. So here we have the opposite. They're sort of freezing because of the uncertainty. They're not doing anything at a time when maybe, just maybe, sending to the markets, a slight reduction in interest rates like President Trump had called for a few weeks ago, but they kind of go the opposite way. They're not tone deaf. I meaning even Supreme Court justices, give me a moment here, please. When they're looking at big cases, they still go home and they'll maybe go to a restaurant and listen to people or talk to people, and they might watch some stuff. They go online. The Fed's not totally insulated. Let's be honest. They live a normal life. So why wouldn't they be listening to someone like yourself and others saying, like, don't do what's predictable. You always sort of sit there if it's uncertain, you don't do anything, and then you act too late and you look goofy. Why don't you just, what's going on? Why don't you be proactive? Why does the Fed resist that? Oh, that day, that I'm sure that's working. How's that working for you? Well, why? Okay, look, Why doesn't one fed now they're made up of Federal Reserve governors, right? Districts. Okay, but when they meet, they're meeting with the Federal Reserve Chairman Powell, correct? Why doesn't a couple of the governors, just like politics, say, look, we listen to these 200 academics, a lot of degrees here. We know what we've done in the past. We sat too long when rates were too low. Now we're not moving. We know it's not the right thing to do. Why don't we be leaders? And no offense to our academic people, do what a lot of people do. Thank you for your input. We appreciate it. I'm the decision maker. Staff member, you're not. We appreciate your input. We're going a different way. Well, how's that work for Harvard University? No, I'm kidding, Doug. Thank you, Doug. Fun discussion. So I guess no rate cut in June, maybe July. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an Age. Job of the 10 o'clock. We'll check the tourism results from a mixed bag weather-wise over the weekend. Alicia Preston Xanthopoulos, Seacoast Online. And then Anna Brown in the next hour takes us through the state budget. We're getting to that period. It's crunch time in Concord. The ball's in the Senate, as they say. And then a little bit later on, we'll have some fun. We'll get checking from Dean Spiliotis, Southern New Hampshire University, one of our political science academic contributors, and a whole lot more. But as we get going on this Tuesday, warmer temperatures finally, excuse me, and some sunshine. J Dog, you said you got too much sun yesterday, and you're out yesterday too much. All right, buddy. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Jack Heath, J Dog on the boards. Back in a few.